this society strongly believes in democracy of ideas. I think we are entitled to do that inquiry of research in such original terms, notwithstanding what is the consequence of what it is. That's the first rule. I think we need to keep it. Very, very important. There is enough ground for any number of alternative views, and that's the only way it needs to flourish. Second thing, for some reasons we have little bit lost out. Another characteristic feature of the Indian society is to think big on every matter. You know, if you take Mundaka Upanishad, it says, Kasmin Vijñate Sarvamitam Vijñatam Bhavati. That's the question. Look at the gravity of the question that is being asked. Kasmin Vijñate Sarvamitam Vijñatam Bhavati. Tell me, by knowing that I will be known of everything. I think we have to set very high standards of what we want to actually inquire into. Our rishis have time and again, every Upanishad you will find like that. In fact, in Chandogya Upanishad it says, Nalpe Sukam Asti, Bhuma Vai Sukam. It says, Yat Alpam Tat Mrityam, Martyam. There is nothing, in small things are all, mortal. The big things are immortal. So in every one of our scriptures we find that we had a culture of an unfettered thinking very big, and thinking about issues for Loka Sangraha. So these are some of the principles. In fact, other thing which I want to emphasize is we have a certain tendency, I see it over into a little bit of IKS and all that, I find this. There is this excessive tendency for glorification of the past, which we don't have to necessarily do. I think every society has lived its life and have contributed something very useful. Rather than merely celebrating that and stopping there, I think we need to ask, how do you take it a few steps forward? So this glorification of the past and all those are not required. On the other hand, what we can learn, I am seeing some of the session, Professor Ramasubramanian, I was going through all these things. I think we have put robust methods of how do you establish knowledge, how do you create knowledge which is robust. I think those ideas we need to certainly, borrow, imbibe, bring it into our ways of things. We don't have to stop merely with glorification, because there is a little bit of tendency that we sometimes do all that. The other thing which I want to tell about the IKS as an area where we want to move forward, I would like to tell there are a lot of youngsters sitting here. I'm very happy seeing that. There is no substitute to reading the scriptures and our knowledge systems in its original. Please don't underestimate the value of this. There is a tendency to read some translated works, especially the translated works by foreign authors. We have to be a little bit careful, because in all fairness, if I tell my joke in my mother tongue in English, you will, instead of laughing, you will start crying, because language preserves a lot of things into it. You just try your mother tongue, you take a joke and tell it in some other language, you will understand the gravity of the problem. We should not do that, because language preserves us a certain idea, a certain usage pattern, a certain perspective to what is being told and so on. Therefore, there is enormous value. I would like to request that our journey in Indian knowledge system, research, teaching, whatever it is, must begin with a sankalpa that I will take one scripture which is of my interest. We don't have to start reading everything. I think we can take one scripture which is very close to our heart, which is even a little closer to what I am doing, my interest and so on. I think there is no substitute, and that will inform volumes of what we need to do, because that's the charm of the scriptures that we have, the knowledge systems that we have. There's another thing which I wanted to say. Coming to teaching, there is a lot of effort to teach Indian knowledge systems in universities and institutions. I want to make this very clear. See, if you ask me to teach anesthesia, I won't teach, because I am a professor of management. How can I teach anesthesia? Or if you ask some polymer chemist to teach metallurgy, he or she will not teach. We have that dharma. But somehow what I find is, when it comes to Indian knowledge systems, everybody says, I will teach. I think again this happens out of a little bit of anxiety, genuine interest and all that. I am not, please don't mistake me if I didn't mean any other ways. But I am saying, when we have to teach Indian knowledge system, we must invest substantively in reading scriptures, developing the domain expertise, thinking through it in our own ways, rather than in our anxiety to bring, because we will do a lot of counter marketing. We will, instead of serving the cause, we may end up actually damaging the cause even more. I think we have to be very mindful of this trap, because I've seen it in a few places. I think many things are being attempted. I think it requires hard work, and that's the only way we can show our Shraddha. Shraddha towards our Bharatiya Gyan Parampara, the index of showing that Shraddha is the amount of effort we want to put. I think we may have to invest for a few years of serious reading and guided reading, I would say. Knowledge system that we want to pursue has a certain tradition, has a certain orientation, and has a certain culture with which we need to understand and assimilate that. Then we will be able to make use of it and create newer paths, assimilate it, synthesize it in the ways that we need it for the society today. The last thing I would like to say is whether it is teaching or research in Indian knowledge system, I would like to make this request. Context must drive the scriptures rather than the scriptures drive the context. It becomes very difficult sometimes, because I see, simply they take Arthashastra and pull something out of it and churn something out of it. I think all these we are doing, I'm not suspecting on the intentions, we are, with all our genuinity we want to do. I think contextual relevance is very, very useful. Therefore, society has a lot of problems. Society is moving, it's evolving, and that is a very, dharma of our ancestors. When problems emerged, they inquired into the problem and came with ways of solving, and that's how these scriptures grew continuously. In mathematics and astronomy, Ram Subramaniam used to tell you how for 1400 years it has been continuously evolving. I think we should have that culture in us. So therefore, let us talk about the problems, the issues that we face, and how in our effort to solve the issues, let's dip into the scriptures, synthesize, deeply understand, synthesize ideas from that. Then, there is a possibility that we can create and we can regain the last glory that we have in the last, few years and so on.